When we think of the prophet Elijah, we usually picture this towering, almost mythical hero from the Bible. But his real story, well, it isn't about some kind of unwavering strength. It's actually about a really profound and difficult transformation from a fiery, intense zealot into a timeless symbol of compassion.
The entire story really hinges on this one powerful paradox. What if the very quality that made someone a legendary hero was also the source of their biggest failing? I mean, for Elijah, this wasn't just some hypothetical question. It was the central conflict of his entire life, and understanding it is absolutely the key to his whole journey.
And make no mistake, his power was just immense. Ancient texts talk about him in these almost godlike terms. In the Midrash, a collection of rabbinic teachings, God himself supposedly says, "I revive the dead, and Elijah revived the dead. I bring down rain, and Elijah brought down rain." So you see, he wasn't just a prophet, he was a literal force of nature.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Let's meet Elijah in his first form, the righteous, uncompromising, and fiery prophet of God. This is the Elijah of legend, right? A man who could command the elements and challenge kings without even a hint of fear. And just look at the sheer scale of his power. He wasn't just, predicting the future. He was actively shaping reality itself, bringing a dead child back to life, controlling the weather, calling down fire from the heavens. He could even, incredibly, influence God's own decrees.
So what was driving him? It all came down to this one singular divine quality, known in Hebrew as kinah. Now, this isn't just passion or enthusiasm. It's this all-consuming zeal, a kind of jealousy for God that demands absolute, uncompromising loyalty. This was the very engine of all his power.
But as we often see, that kind of absolute power, well, it can have a pretty dark side. And this same divine zeal, his greatest strength, started to curdle into a really dangerous and destructive flaw.
And this is where you really see the two faces of his zeal. The exact same passion that led him to save a starving widow also drove him to slaughter 450 prophets of Baal and call down fire to incinerate soldiers. For him, the world was just absolute black and white. There was simply no in-between.
He got so harsh, so extreme, that, according to some rabbinic traditions, even God had to step in. After Elijah just relentlessly condemned the people of Israel, one midrash imagines God telling him, straight up, "I do not want your prophesying." His zeal had completely alienated him from the very people he was supposed to be guiding. And this is where everything changes. It's the story's critical turning point. Broken and completely defeated by his own extremism, Elijah flees into the wilderness, and he ends up at the very same holy mountain where Moses got the 10 Commandments.
I mean, he is at absolute rock bottom. This mighty prophet who commanded fire from the sky is now totally alone, so filled with despair that he's actually begging God to take his life. And it's right here, in this moment of total weakness, that he is finally ready for a new kind of revelation.
And what happens is just stunning. God doesn't appear in the mighty wind or the earth-shattering quake or the consuming fire. All the elements Elijah was famous for using. Nope. Instead, the divine presence is felt in a sound of sheer stillness. The lesson couldn't be clearer. True power wasn't in rage and fury, but in quiet, patient gentleness.
This moment kicks off what Jewish mysticism calls a tikkun. Think of it like a mending, a correction of the soul. Elijah's mission wasn't about fighting enemies on the outside anymore. It was about healing his own internal harshness. He had to be, in a sense, sweetened.
So what happens after this huge interchange? Well, it leads to a completely new identity. The zealot basically dies, and a new figure is born, one who's going to live forever, not as a warrior, but as a helper.
The transformation was just total. The man who once demanded absolute loyalty, if Yahweh is God, follow him, and if Baal, follow him. He now comes to understand a much deeper truth, that both these and those are words of the living God. His entire mission shifts from destroying his opponents to harmonizing disputes and bringing peace.
So after he completes his tikkun, Elijah doesn't actually die. He ascends to heaven in a fiery chariot and is granted immortality. And his new, eternal job, it's to wander the earth in disguise, offering help to the needy, rescuing the oppressed, and teaching humanity how to love.
But wait, the story, it doesn't actually end there. Later, mystical teachings reveal what might be the most profound secret of all. Elijah isn't just some external figure we wait for, he actually represents a potential hidden deep inside every single one of us. Okay, so there's this incredible concept called bibinet Eliyahu, which basically means an aspect of Elijah. It's the idea that a spark of his energy, his yearning for good, his desire to help, it exists in all of us. It's not something we wait for, it's something we have to activate. There's this beautiful Hasidic tale that just nails this idea perfectly. So, there's a man who faithfully performs the Passover Seder ritual every single year, opening his door for Elijah to enter, just like tradition says. But year after year, nothing. Nobody comes. Frustrated, he finally goes to his rabbi to ask why. The rabbi gives him this strange set of instructions, almost like a quest. He tells the man to find the most destitute family he can, and then promise to pay for their entire holiday celebration the next year. He has to provide everything they need and do it with true compassion. Do this, the rabbi tells him, and I guarantee you, Elijah will visit. So the man does exactly as he's told. A year later, he goes back to the rabbi complaining again that Elijah never showed up. The rabbi just quietly picks up a mirror, holds it to the man's face, and says, "You don't understand. Elijah did come. Look, this was Elijah's face that night."
And that's it. That's the whole key right there. We don't just wait for Elijah, we become Elijah. We become him every time we perform an act of selfless kindness, every time we help someone in need or choose compassion over judgment. That inner spark is always there, just waiting for us to fan it into a flame.
This quote just sums it up so perfectly, doesn't it? The biblical story was only Act 1. Act 2 is happening right now, all around us, and we are all potential actors in it. His story isn't over. It's unfolding through our own choices and our own actions.
Which really leaves us with one final thought: Elijah's journey from zeal to gentleness, from warrior to helper. That's a path that's available to all of us. His story is still being written, showing up by surprise through ordinary acts of human decency. So the only real question is, how will you answer the call?